He got it this time.
All right,
nice. Good to see you. How are you doing?
Doing all right. How are you, Ben?
You know, it's been
All right, liberal Spider-Man. Let's see what you got today. I hope he cooks his ass, dude.
Yeah, it's a little bit of like an interesting setting being surrounded by 20 people that disagree with you.
I mean, the truth is I grew up in LA and then I went to law school in Cambridge. So,
you
I'm
had
a little
more
used to
than
it. It's not, yeah.
Yeah, why don't you say he went to law school at Cambridge? Yeah, he went to Harvard, dog. Just say it. What was so embarrassing about that?
Anyways, let's talk about DEI. Do you think that Trump should have won 2016? I'll wrap it in. It's conceptually relevant. I'll demonstrate the relevance.
Okay, sounds good. By what measure? Do I think he did win or do I think he should have won?
Do you think he should have won?
I mean, yes, I'm happy that he won. If the question is, am I happy that he won? I'm happy that he won.
Okay. Well, I'd say that Trump won 2016 because
By the way, I did not vote for either candidate in 2016. That's a decision made in retrospect.
Awesome. So I think that Trump won 2016 because of a modality of DEI. Essentially, what I'd say is the Electoral College, right, strives for inclusion of smaller states with lower populations by overrepresenting them in the overall vote.
I love this argument so much. It's so dumb, but it very quickly gets to the heart of how silly the DEI is. The Electoral College's DEI is the best. Was it him or was it the other white debate kid on TikTok that first cooked that up? When I heard it the first time, I was like, "Damn, that's you're chefing." Okay, excellent. I don't know which one of them came up with it, but great one, great bar. Okay.
Like you could correct me if I'm wrong, or the SAN fact checkers can. I'm pretty sure that over the last 25 to 30 years, Republicans have won the presidency given the Electoral College, not given the overall popular vote. So if you're against DEI, if you don't want inclusion on the basis of race, inclusion on the basis of gender, or even what you're saying earlier, we could even say inclusion on the basis of class. Why do you want inclusion on the basis of population, rural areas, states, etc.?
We should actually use a better example. Why don't you just ask if I believe in the U.S. Senate? Right,
the U.S. Senate, this would also apply to the U.S. Senate.
Right, okay, so let's use the U.S. Senate because the U.S. Senate is actually even
It's the greatest deliberative body in the world.
more unrepresentative of the general population than the Electoral College, which is at least a rough approximation.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the U.S. Senate, we wouldn't care about states like Montana. It's like we don't. That's why it's a nuclear dump, okay? That's why the nuclear silos are there, okay? So that they could be the nuclear sponge. We don't. We literally don't. Don't act like you do. Shut the fuck up.
It'd just be funnier to hear you say that you shouldn't have voted for Trump in 2016. But we could talk about.
That's a different subject. But yeah. I'm very happy that he won, even though I didn't vote for him. I mean, we can talk about Trump later.
Yeah.
We've already done a bit. Well, I'm sure we'll do more. As far as the idea that every elected body has to be elected based on population as opposed to based on the area of geographic distribution or the states that actually pre-existed the federal government. Okay, the way that the Constitution of the United States was created was as a contract between sovereign states, which is one of the reasons why, for example, you have a United States Senate as opposed to just a House of Representatives. So is that a form of DEI? That seems like a stretch to me. What? The kind of DEI that I'm talking about specifically would be separating human beings based on inherent characteristics, like, for example, race, as opposed to suggesting that the United States Senate, which is obviously
Oh, he doesn't like it. He doesn't like it when you use the Electoral College. He's like, no, I want DEI to be what I think it is. Okay? I want DEI to be what I think it is. You can't make the argument about diversity, equity, and inclusion for anything else. It just means black people. That's why I love this line of argumentation. It directly fits the bill, and it's like a good thing to just throw in the face of Republicans because they immediately have to turn around and be like, well, I think it's just black people. I'm saying black people when I say DEI.
Representative of the general population.
Well, seemingly my point is
that that's just a check and balance, right?
Well, seemingly my point is that this is another modality of DEI. I've no problem with you explaining to me, right, why the Senate or the Electoral College would be given the U.S. Constitution and some contractual agreement that they had between the sovereign states. That's fine. But what I'd say is that your claim here would just imply that the Constitution upholds DEI within our electoral process.
Why are you ragging on what he sounds like? Disagree all day, but why shit on something he can't control? Because he sounds like a nerd, okay? That's why. I'm having fun with it. Shut up. You sound like a nerd too. Excuse me, that's an ad hominem. Shut up. We're having fun with it. We're watching a silly ass Jubilee video, okay? He's a ginormous piece of shit. You understand? Virtually every single thing that comes out of his mouth is bile. I'm sorry that it hurts your little fifis because Ben Shapiro might not hear you making a nerd voice when talking about him, but your friend who is a nerd will. He's acting like you're making fun of a disability. Yeah.
Processes.
If your claim is
so, do you think that the Constitution upholds DEI in the sense of including smaller states with less representative populations?
That is a true stretch of the meaning of DEI. But I get your point. I mean, if the idea is that the only thing that is not pure DEI in a democratic context would be sort of popularly represented votes, then I think you can make the case that basically you should get rid of every representative institution. We should go to a pure democracy because...
Well, I'm not making a case for what we should replace it with. I'm making the case that it would uphold DEI. We could talk about what other systems should function in the case of the Electoral College or in the case of the Senate, but that's a completely different conversation than are these systems upholding DEI.
So again, I think that you're definitionally stretching DEI. If DEI is the basic idea that all disparities equal discrimination and must be rectified by government interventionism, which is sort of the definition, then stretching that to mean the Electoral College seems like you're going pretty far afield to defend.
No, he's not. No, he's not. He's using the appropriate language when he says the Electoral College or the Senate, if you want to talk about that, is a modality of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is directly designed to create some sense of equity and inclusion from states that are significantly smaller. Okay? That's it. The problem here is that you either don't know what DEI means or you know exactly what it means, but you're using it in a different way because you're using it as a substitute for non-white, non-man, usually just a substitute for black. But in this case, Ben Shapiro is an equal opportunity hater for the most part. So maybe he means like non-white male. That's it. It's the same exact reason why we never say that like Tim Walz is a DEI pig. We never said Joe Biden is a DEI pig, right? They are.
And a very broad concept as specifically badly applied.
Wait, 1 second. I don't think that we need to say that DEI is equivalent to disparities equal discrimination. We could just see that DEI is like a qualm for disparities in general, right? And what we apply here in this certain modality when we're talking about the Electoral College, when we're talking about the Senate, is we're trying to qualm the disparities of the lack of population in rural areas. We're trying to qualm the disparities of smaller states compared to larger states. And seemingly, you haven't really given me a response to this apart from calling it a stretch, but I do appreciate you for
No, I mean, it seems to me like the argument that you're making is that in order for there to be calm and sort of conciliation inside the United States, particular racial groups have to be given particular benefits. Okay, well, because that was the argument with regard to the states in the United States, right? When the Constitution was formed, the way that you came to an actual agreement in the Constitutional Convention is states were not going to sign on unless they got particular guarantees of the interests of those particular states, right? So if you're claiming that that's DEI, then the response that I would...
Ben is literally saying, Ben just described the concept of equity and then said, and this is why it doesn't fit the bill of DEI.
Would have is right, because that's how you have to come to an agreement. So if you're going to make the parallel argument with regard to DEI in, for example, the racial context, you then have to make the case that the only way that you can have conciliation in the United States is for particular racial groups to be given specific racial benefits, and otherwise the country is going to split apart, which is an argument with which I generally disagree, even if I agreed with the way the Constitution was formed.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't see like your parallel here, right? I think that DEI could exist in multiple modalities. My argument in a nutshell is nothing more than the fact that
he's saying DEI means give black people benefits is so slimy. Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem. Ben keeps not saying the quiet part out loud, but pointing to it that DEI means black person. Okay, the fundamental disagreement here between Timothy Chalamet, woke Timothy Charlemagne and Ben Shapiro is that technically the Electoral College, something that Ben would defend, or the way that the Senate is structured, another thing that Ben would defend, is built on the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Ben is constantly going back to the argument that like, nah, it just means black people. But without openly saying it like that, because he would openly say it like that, then you would realize like he's a racist piece of shit. He's a racist piece of shit who avoids certain realities, like you avoid the top of the hour ad break, by subscribing. That is Tom Holland, woke Spider-Man. He could be Libethy Chalamet. I don't know. We're being anti-white racist right here. Here's the 3-minute ad break now, by the way.
We see disparities existing in rural areas compared to metropolitan areas. We see disparities existing in the size of a state and its overall population, and you're qualming these...
Right.
Can't tell if you like this kid or not. No, I do like him. I like him. I think he's a little bit too libbed up, and I hope that he like doesn't fall full tilt debate lord. I mean, he is doing that right now, but I think that what's his take on Palestine? I don't know. I actually have no idea. Like, I like him more than I like Harry Hasan for sure. Like, there were a couple things that he said. There were a couple things that he said in the like previous one against Charlie Kirk, where was it Charlie Kirk? Where I didn't fully. I didn't think that he took the best route when like talking about Kamala's immigration policies. But overall, I think he's a pretty solid debater, and it seems like his heart is in the right place. And when people constantly have guys like this, and they go, "Oh, dude, he follows Destiny," like, I don't give a shit, dude. I don't even care if you're a fan of Destiny. If you're like literally constantly in his community, okay, as long as you present yourself in a solid fashion against someone like Ben Shapiro and make him eat his words, I'm a right for you in that moment. Okay, 1000%, even including but not limited to, what's that other guy? The guy that was on the Nirvana cover when he was a baby who hates me. I would have given Divorcelli a shot if he actually didn't sit there and goddamn agree with Ben Shapiro for like most of the conversation that they had. And there's a couple things I don't like. One of those things is obviously like sitting around and just like agreeing with Ben Shapiro. It's disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable when Anna did it too. I don't think it was appropriate at all. This man is a goddamn demon. That's up. The other thing that I thought that he did that was like up was when he went on the cake stream to like debate Nicholas Fuentes. Like, I don't think that was a good idea. There is no reason whatsoever, even though his platform is not that big overall, and it's more beneficial for him. Even though his platform is not that big, and it was somewhat beneficial for him to present himself in front of like a Nazi. I don't think that you should ever fucking sit across from a guy like Nick Fuentes and debate them. I just don't think that it's a smart way to go about things. Now, the difference there, of course, is that like if Nick Fuentes was like straight up in a prominent, elevated position, then that's a little different. Like, has a massive fan base and a massive audience and like tens of thousands of people who like hang on every word that he says, then you have to deal with that. But everything that you do leading up to that is basically giving him an additional platform, like having him over or going out and getting chicken and waffles with him and inviting him to your home. Like, these are all things that you should never do, especially when he had no motion, no juice whatsoever. Like, when you do that, or when you bring him on to like other podcasts, you put him through the podcast circuit, like, you are giving him clout, which is insane. I'm not saying that Dean did that, by the way. There's another person that did say that or did do that.
Right, but the DEI,
losing the
DEI response to that would not be
like through like an over representation.
And the DEI
and I understand that your argument is, but my single-handed point here is that you would say, in some sense, that this is a reconciliation to introduce more inclusion in the sense of a state to state in their population. I mean, so if you make the concession that this is DEI, would you say in the same sense that we shouldn't have
I don't make the concession that falls within the
okay.
definition of DEI that I've used. And if your claim is that I'm now in favor of, for example, subsidies to rural areas at the expense of urban areas, I'm not actually.
So do you think that DEI would only apply in the context of race?
No, it could apply in the context of class. It could apply.
Okay, if it could apply in the context of race, class, and identity, why can't it apply in the context of a state's population and their representation in our government?
I mean, if they were to receive special bennies at the expense of other members of the population,
they are.
Wait, yeah. What do you mean? You're allocating political capital directly to a state that it does not. You're allocating political power to a state, not by the virtue of anything, but simply existing as a state. What does he mean? Wait, what does he mean by bennies? Is he a gonk? Oh, benefits. Isn't bennies like cyberpunk money? Oh, no, that was Eddie's. And One Piece currency is berries. So I guess no one has, there isn't. What the fuck? Gonk. Is he a gonk or a choom? No choom, it's Eddie's. A lot of you are a bunch of corpo gonks, dude. You don't know what a real choom You don't know what a real choom sounds like. I'm speaking cyberpunk speak.
Yes, like Alabama or Arkansas are literally receiving special benefits insofar as a greater level of representation in our Senate and in electoral processes compared to people in California. I mean, for instance, that's my buddy Parker over there. He lives in California, right? And I live in Colorado. So I literally have more representation person for person in the sense of Parker's vote compared to my vote, because individualistically speaking, I'm from a state that has more representation, and the same thing could be said for multiple other states across America, especially in the Senate. There's two senators that represent me and everyone else in Colorado, and there's two senators that represent him and the millions more people.
How are you getting from point
California.
A, which is that California has 2 senators and Colorado has 2 senators, to point B, which is that we should have incredible racial carve-outs on the basis of group identity at the behest of the federal government? That is a very, very large stretch. And to
No, it's not. No, it's not. You are desperately running away from the principle when it suits your political project versus the way that you want to represent what DEI actually is, without actually ever admitting that when you say DEI, you mean black people. You are embarrassed to say it because you're at least too smart to understand a common Hasanabi principle. There is a level of permissible racism in America. Ben Shapiro sometimes goes above it, but usually stays under that boundary in an effort to make himself seem like an intellectual, okay?
to get from point A to point B on the basis of the constitutional structure seems like you're going pretty far afield. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but you know, the rubber band only goes so far.
That's the end of this claim.
That's great.
I appreciate you, man. Hopefully we can talk more.
I hear what you're saying.
The other thing with like debate guys is that they have like respect for a guy like Ben Shapiro. I think that I have too much hate in my heart for people that spread that kind of hate. You know what I mean?